Threads. Did either of you sign up for a Threads account first before we get into the story? You did. Danny?
I have not. Nope.
I have not also. Well, Will, you'll have to give us the intel on how it's going. Threads hit 30 million users a day after launch, while Twitter threatens legal action against Meta for hiring ex-Twitter employees with knowledge of the company's trade secrets. Threads has been able to compete with Twitter. Some are saying like no other platform has before because of the Instagram integration that allows you to follow all of the same people that you follow on Instagram. Will, since you signed up for Threads, what has your experience been like? Are you going to say goodbye to Twitter?
Yeah, I don't know. We talked about this yesterday. I didn't have an Instagram account for years, and then I just like rebooted back up because of Threads, and then immediately was hit with a bunch of high school friends I did not want to see on a Twitter clone. That just felt very awkward to navigate around. And before I knew it, there was just a bunch of brand ads everywhere, a lot of like cringy material, a lot of weird tweets. They're kind of like putting this out there as Twitter, but safe for everyone. I think they're going to do a lot of work on sort of the censorship front and take down things that they don't like. And so maybe it's like more friendly for brands and I guess for people who don't want to deal with like the trash bucket that is Twitter often. But at the same time, like I don't think the content was as good. Now, towards the Twitter versus Meta take, the interesting discussion here on the crypto angle is that there's been a lot of people who've been trying to build things outside of Twitter. If you look through Bitcoin's history, there's sort of been like a progression of moving away from different social platforms. So in the early days, you had the Bitcoin talk forums, and then there's this movement to Reddit, and then now it's on Twitter, right? And so a lot of these people have been like, we don't like Twitter as much these days. Like Elon's been testing a prod. It hasn't been as great. What if we could go to Nostr or Mastodon or Blue Sky? A lot of these applications just haven't taken off that well. I think Nostr's maybe had the most successful launch to date, but even that, if you look at it, it's pretty small, like very small. The thing with Threads is it did grow very fast, right? They had like 30 million users within one day because people were just able to port over their Instagram accounts almost immediately. The question here is like, can it stick? Twitter's been very sticky. It's one of the smaller giant social platforms out there with like a little over 300 million users, I believe. That's comparative like Facebook's billions of users. I just don't know if it's going to stick though, because Twitter is and remains a dominant platform for connecting people who have interesting ideas and takes in forms of microblogging. Danny?
Yeah, I think Elon's just being very insecure here, right? He's already burned $44 billion and pissed off a lot of people and a lot of brands. And now Instagram, Facebook, Meta is coming through with what really is a Twitter clone, right? Threads looks like Twitter, feels like Twitter from the limited amounts I've interacted with it. It's the latest Twitter clone, Blue Sky being the other one, but it's definitely the most it's definitely poses the biggest challenge to Twitter's dominance. Whether that will become sticky remains to be seen. I don't necessarily think it will. I think that everyone on Twitter really actually loves to hate the trash bucket and can't do without it. So no one's going to be writing off Twitter just yet. What stands out to me for Threads and what it brings to the table that Twitter doesn't have is its use of this protocol called ActivityPub, which will allow it to, in theory, be more decentralized network. That's not to say decentralized in the crypto way, where people are running validators and actually control the software and the hardware behind it, but with Threads use of this protocol, you could conceivably move your social followings from Threads to Mastodon or to one of these other protocols, one of these other services that also use it. So it, in theory, frees up people to have a more versatile and more fluid social experience. So that's promising to me. It's something that you just don't see at all on Twitter. I think that Elon here is just very insecure about the position that he has, in which he's really just pissing off a lot of people.
Yeah, I agree with you, Danny. I think Elon is pissing off a lot of people. They're trying to make business changes, but the changes they're making are affecting the end user, which I don't know if they're meaning for that to happen, or I don't know if they're thinking forward enough. A recent example of that was the limits on the amount of tweets you could view to try and address data scraping by brands, publishing companies for that kind of sentiment data. But who did it end up affecting? It ended up affecting users, making them upset, driving them to try out any number of these Twitter alternatives that have popped up in the last days. I wonder if this is going to be an opportunity for Elon to really kind of shift the business model of Twitter. I think yesterday there was that story that came out and said he wants to change Twitter into like a WeChat of the West, where it's the app that you do everything in. That's really different than how Twitter looks today. So maybe there's a future where there's a version of Twitter that looks like the Twitter we use today, and then there's a version of Twitter that is completely different. And Elon's giga brain has a vision that we just cannot comprehend right now. Will, you got any last thoughts on this one?
Yeah, I mean, Elon is going to test and prod, and I think he's held to that, right? There's been a lot of changes to Twitter, and they've moved forward with some, they've moved back with others. And I think that Twitter in a year is going to look a lot different than it is right now. So I'm not overly worried. I don't like the experience right now, but that's just one crypto Twitter person's opinion. So I don't know. Danny?
Yeah, I'm sticking with Twitter for now, I have to say. As much as I hate it, I really do love to hate it. So I can't cut it off.
It's kind of part of it, right? It's part of the whole experience.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.